Rumor has it I got the gig for Walmart.
I think you do. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're a couple of minutes after 6:30. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Note for the record that all members of council are present and accounted for, except for Mayor Pro Tem Merkel, who won't be able to join us this evening. As always, we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you're able, please stand and join us. We have the opportunity to begin this evening meeting with the presentation and proclamation. This proclamation is for the National Arts and Humanities Month. Director Rogers and Ms. Ain, if you can meet me down front. Councilman Hypes is liaison.
Thank you.
Kim.
You're on the spot.
For the month of October, we celebrate National Arts and Humanities Month, and we have a brochure, which I actually did not bring out, but we have lots of different art leader groups that do extra things in October to acknowledge the arts and celebrate the arts in our local community. So tonight, our mayor will be reading a proclamation, and I'll let you introduce.
Would you like to introduce everyone?
Yes. This is Zeal Parikh. She's our arts coordinator and programmer at the Arts Center. Melody Cookson, she's our chair of our Cultural Arts Commission. And Morgan Rogers, the director of our department. And I think you know the other two.
Thank you, Kim. Has anyone here not been to the Arts Center on Mayfield? Everybody's been. Fantastic. Well, I don't have to sell you on it then. It's an amazing facility, and they do great work over there. We're very happy for everybody that makes it possible.
Come on, Dad.
Oh, hello. So I'll read this proclamation. And this is a proclamation by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, National Arts and Humanities Month. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, and by the White House and the Congress for more than 2 decades. And whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American and play a unique and intrinsically valuable role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country. And whereas the arts and humanities contribute towards cross-cultural understanding and enhance the quality of life, and whereas studies show that arts and humanities serve as an economic engine for many communities throughout the country, and whereas the artistic community enhances culture and embraces creativity in music, dance, theater, literature, design, media, and visual arts, and whereas the nonprofit and for-profit arts and humanities industries work to promote, protect, and support the growth of culture and heritage within the city of Alpharetta, and whereas the arts and humanities influence every aspect of our community in Alpharetta by improving our economy, enriching our civics, driving tourism, enhancing the quality of life, and exerting a positive influence on our children's education. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and the council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, do hereby declare October 2023 as Arts and Humanities Month. We encourage all members of the community to celebrate, promote, support, and participate in the arts and culture throughout Alpharetta. So proclaimed this 16th day of October 2023 by the Mayor and City Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia.
No words of wisdom, Morgan?
Well, certainly I'll take an opportunity if it's given to me, Councilman Heights. I just want to say thanks to the Cultural Arts Commission as well as the staff of the Cultural Arts. They have, in a very short amount of time, added such a dynamic and diverse offering of cultural activities to our community. It's just amazing what is happening in this community. And it's because everybody is, as they say, rowing in the same direction in the cultural arts and historic world. And we are forever appreciative of that and what y'all do day in and day out to make our city a special place. So thank you very much.
And I don't usually take the opportunity, but I want to right now. Our arts community is on fire right now. The visual arts, the performing arts, what was once a secret, the secret is out, and it's because of the leadership of these folks. And we have an arts community to be incredibly proud of, and it's great today and it's getting better every day. So I'm so appreciative of what they are doing. And again, visual arts and performing arts, it enriches everybody in this community. And just want to say thank you in addition to the plaque that you have right there, the proclamation. So,
Thank you, everyone. So the first item up on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda. And we have several items. The first item is City Council meeting minutes for the meeting of August 28th, 2023. The City Council work session minutes for the work session of September 18th, 2023. City Council meeting minutes from the meeting of 9/18/2023. We also have alcoholic beverage license applications, PH-23-AB-22, Connor Diner, Inc., DBA Connor Steak and Seafood, 5045 Windward Parkway, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30004. We have land donation agreement for 445 Ridgewood Way, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30005, right-of-way. The right-of-way warranty deed for Thompson Street, 92 Thompson Development, LLC. The conflict waiver with the City of Milton and City of Alpharetta intergovernmental agreement for public safety software. And those are all the items on the consent agenda. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
Not for this item, Mr. Mayor.
If there's anyone who would like to speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as outlined by Mayor Gilpin.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Dorito and a second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll move on to the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. First item up is Z-23-08/V-23-13. 10355 Waters Road Tract. Mr. Woodman?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first request under public hearing is a request for rezoning and variance to subdivide a 1.5 acre property into 2 single-family detached lots. A rezoning is requested from AG Agriculture to R22, minimum 22,000 square foot lots. And then there's a variance request to reduce the front setbacks of those lots. Do have the location map on the overhead. This property is located at 10355 Waters Road. It's on the east side of Waters Road, right across from Lauren Hall Court. The proposed density would be 1.33 dwelling units per acre. This is the property here. It's a wooded property. It's developed with a single-family home currently. That home is proposed to be removed. The Acuna Court subdivision is under construction and located to the northwest. Waters Cove subdivision is located to the east, and Lauren Hall subdivision is located to the southwest. The future land use designation of this property is very low-density residential, which does allow the applicant's requests for R22 zoning. The variance was to reduce the front setback. The front setback in R22 is 65 feet. The applicant is asking to reduce that to 50 feet. This is the applicant's proposed site plan. I'll just kind of turn that north. This is Waters Road here, and you have the 2 lots. Both lots are about 32 to 33,000 square feet each. They both have access from Waters Road, and the homes are oriented to Waters Road. They have a side-loaded garage, so this represents the garage here and here. So the garage, this is side-loaded product, so the garage doors would not face the road. There are quite a few trees on the property. There are 3 specimen trees identified on the property in the applicant's arborist reports, of which they are saving one. It's a 34-inch tulip poplar. There are additional tree saves that are depicted on the site plan, and there are tree saves in this general area here, as well as this area here. Of course, the zoning proposal, we believe it would be suitable as it relates to the use and development of adjacent and nearby properties. Most of the properties in this general vicinity are zoned either CUP, which is Community Unit Plan. That was a zoning district that was used because most of these subdivisions along this section of Waters Road were approved and developed under Fulton County and then later annexed into the city. So they didn't match our zoning districts exactly. Typically the lots along this section of Waters Road, the subdivisions will have anywhere from a 12,000 to 18,000 square foot lot. And again, the applicant is asking for R22, which would be a 22,000 square foot lot. So it would be larger than surrounding developments. They are showing tree saves on the property, so we do believe that the applicant is making attempts to limit their impacts on the natural environment. They're limiting their impacts on public facilities and services. The density is below the maximum that would be allowed under the future land use. And then with respect to the variance, the property does have an unusual shape. It has a triangular shape, which makes it more difficult to subdivide. And so we do believe that the variance is supported. The variance to reduce the front setback would be supported. We did look at other subdivisions and their setbacks along Waters Road. Most subdivisions along Waters Road do not have homes that front on Waters Road. There are a few examples along Waters Road where you have a home that either fronts onto the road or has a side that faces the road. And typically, those setbacks were anywhere from 20 to 35 feet. So the applicant's request to reduce to 50, we believe, is supported by the unusual shape of that property. The applicant did provide a citizen participation plan. They indicated that they met with the Waters Cove subdivision, and Waters Cove, just point that out to you. Waters Cove is the subdivision that is to the east of this property. The applicant heard from Waters Cove. They had concerns over tree removal. They did request that the applicant provide a row of Leland cypress along the common property with Waters Cove, so along here. We do not recommend the use of the Leland cypress, so you'll see in the condition, we recommend cryptomeria instead. The city also received some correspondence from some nearby residents objecting to the applicant's request. At the time of the two objections that we received, the applicant was asking for, I believe, R12 zoning to subdivide the property into 3 lots. And those objections in that objection letter had concerns over lack of stormwater, traffic, homes not fronting on Waters Road, tree removal, the 3-lot plan was too tight, and there were concerns about the public notification. The applicant did not send the public notification to staff for review before they sent it out, so it didn't have all the information that it should have. So the applicant did resend their public notification. At the time that they resent that, they did change the request to R22 to match the future land use, and they changed the site plan from 3 lots to 2 lots. The applicant did show their request to the public at the July 12th Community Zoning Information Meeting. There were no public comments on the sign-in sheet. And then this item did go forward to Planning Commission. It went to Planning Commission twice. The first time it was at Planning Commission was September 7th. There were a couple of public comments in opposition at that meeting. Concerns over stormwater, public notification, screening trees. They wanted screening trees installed prior to construction. Trees in the 30-foot rear setback should be saved. Ultimately, Planning Commission deferred the item to the next meeting at the October 5th meeting. At that time, Planning Commission was not satisfied with the renderings that were provided. So before I show you those renderings, as you can see, these 2 homes they're narrow to the street. So the renderings at the September Planning Commission meeting showed homes that were had the length of the home, the longer end of the home, oriented to the street, so that the renderings didn't match the footprints on the site plan. So ultimately, Planning Commission deferred and asked the applicant to come back with updated home renderings that match those footprints. The applicant went back to the October 5th Planning Commission meeting. There were again 2 public comments in opposition, similar concerns as I mentioned at the September 7th Planning Commission meeting. Ultimately, Planning Commission recommended approval of the applicant's request, subject to staff's recommended conditions, and then they added a sentence to condition number 7. In condition number 7, the sentence had to do with the condition requiring the cryptomeria along the common property line with Waters Cove. And the sentence that Planning Commission added was the final sentence of condition 7, which basically required that a deed restriction be recorded on the property so that the property owner would know that they needed to maintain that cryptomeria screen adjacent to Waters Cove. So again, Planning Commission did recommend approval to City Council, subject to 9 conditions as shown in the staff report. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Before I do that, here are the renderings that I mentioned a couple times there. So you can see this is a side-loaded product. The home is oriented to Waters Road. These garage doors are not facing Waters Road. This is an example of a home with a stone exterior. So it's all the stone water table here, But this area is also shown in stone. I don't know if that conveys over the overhead. And then this is the same product in brick. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Dorito?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Woodman. Are you aware of the memorandum in opposition that was sent to council members yesterday from a neighbor?
I did not receive
Okay.
that from yesterday.
There are two, I have no way to validate this, so I'm sharing it with you. There's
Okay.
two concerns in this memorandum in opposition. Has to do with the tree survey and the survey not including trees on neighboring properties which abut the property line, which could be impacted by the construction of these homes. I'm summarizing. The other issue is where they claim that the applicant has repeatedly violated city ordinances with some sort of brick fireplace and significant, I guess, patio area or whatever, and that in violation because they never got permits for that. So I don't know if that has any impact on this discussion of the city to address those issues prior to approving something like this, but I wanted to ask you that question.
No, I appreciate that. And after you indicated the content of that information, I do believe that I have seen that letter. So I believe that that letter was a letter that was updated by Mr. Pollock. There was an initial opposition letter after the applicant changed their plan to R22 and went to the two-lot plan. There was a new opposition letter that was provided. There was some information, and that letter was provided prior to the Planning Commission meeting. So we did address that with Planning Commission as well. So there were some indications that the tree information that was provided by the applicant, there were some information missing, such as there weren't pictures of the trees provided, that they did not show all the trees on the adjacent property within 30 feet of the property line. We are aware of that. We do not believe that that information was necessary in order for us to make a recommendation to Planning Commission on the applicant's request. So after that September 7th Planning Commission meeting, when the applicant was deferred to the October meeting, in addition to providing the new renderings of the homes fitting these building footprints here, we also asked the applicant to provide the critical root zone and structural root plate of trees, these trees that you can see here along the property line. In addition, we also asked the applicant to show the approximate location of their limits of disturbance. So this dashed line here represents the applicant's limits of disturbance. And so the reason why we were not concerned about showing and I believe the applicant or Mr. Pollock had identified some trees in his backyard. We did believe that none of those trees, except there was one tree, I believe, right here that Mr. Pollock identified closest to the limits of disturbance that we felt could potentially be impacted, the critical root zone of that tree to be impacted, but we did not feel that that would be greater than 20%, which is the maximum that the city arborist can approve as to an impact. So we acknowledged that there were some deficiencies with the tree assessment that was provided. However, we felt like we had enough information in order to make the recommendation to Planning Commission.
Okay. And on the lack of permits on the structures that they put in the property, how is that addressed through this application? Or can we not address that as a violation of not getting proper permits for those structures?
Thank you for reminding me about that piece as well. So I believe what the applicant was referring to is the applicant that the person that, Mr. Pollock, that wrote the objection letter was referring to. So the applicant does own a home. His personal home is in Waters Cove. I believe it's one of these two lots here. I think it's this lot right here, if I remember correctly. So that is what Mr. Pollock is referring to in the letter. And after receiving that and that information in the initial opposition letter. I did reach out to the applicant for this particular request, and I did let him know that it had been brought to our attention that he may have done some work on the exterior of his home without permits. We did research our files to see if any permits had been pulled, and we did not find any. And so the applicant did come in to meet with our staff in order to resolve those improvements that he made in his backyard. I think he added a fire pit and pavilion, I believe. There was some tree removal as well as some turf that was placed in the backyard. So the applicant has submitted information in order to resolve that work that was done without permits. That is currently under review by our staff.
Okay. Seems like you addressed my two questions, so thank you.
Councilman Will.
Mr. Woodman, the original letter requesting the denial, I think from the September meeting, it feels like those issues were addressed. Is that correct or incorrect? And then another letter came out with different objections, or the second letter had the same objections?
So I think there were some objections that were similar. I think that there were certain objections in the initial letter, and some of those were still included in that latter letter. I think specifically the issue with the applicant doing some work at his personal property, I think was in that second letter as well. But the letter was updated because the applicant updated his overall request from the R12 to the R22.
And I also, I can't remember exactly the verbiage that I saw, but it was repeated violations. Were there any other violations other than not getting permits on a fire pit and something else?
We're not aware of any other violations. I think that there was a reference to tree removal on this property without proper permits.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And it was my understanding the city arborist did look at that. We did not have any requests for tree removal out at this site, but I believe, and the applicant can respond to this, I believe the applicant had indicated that these were trees that were not in good health, which do not require a tree removal permit in order to remove. That's my recollection of that.
Who makes that determination?
So that would be determined, well, it would be determined by the property owner, but you have to protect yourself, you should keep evidence of that tree not being in good health. So if it's cut down, if you hire an arborist to cut the tree down, the tree is cut down, you take pictures of like the hollow cavities within the tree.
But in theory, I can just say that it was a bad tree, cut it down, grind the stump, and we don't do it.
If you have a hazardous or dead tree on the property, you can remove that without a permit. But we always recommend that you kind of keep some kind of evidence of that just in case. There may be a neighbor that didn't realize that that wasn't in good health.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Woodman? Thanks, sir. Would the applicant like to come forward at this time? If you could, please state your name and address for the public record.
My name is Nerio Zavalunov. And the address, you said?
Address.
Address of the property is 10355 Waters Road, Alpharetta, Georgia 30022. First off, I'd like to say thank you for hearing my case. I want to mention that I grew up since I was 4 years old here in Roswell. I moved to Alpharetta in 2005. Bought our first home here 6 years ago with my wife. I've seen a lot of growth and development, and it's been amazing. What I'm hoping to get approved today is to build 2 beautiful homes, which I plan to keep one for myself. Waters Road is a highly sought-out area that is close to Avalon downtown area, great school district, and beautiful homes. There are only 3 other homes on Waters Road that have not yet been redeveloped. We're doing our best to save as many trees as we can, but also plan to plant trees as well. I understand my next door neighbor, Mr. Pollock, has been very vocal on opposing this project. He has concerns of no privacy once the trees are removed. I've lived in my home now for 6 years next to the Pollocks, and I can say from experience from the month of November till about April that all the leaves fall on these trees, and there's absolutely no privacy, and you can look straight through this property onto Waters Road. My family and I love privacy just as much as everyone else, and my plan with the city staff help is to plant cryptomeria along the Waters Cove property line, which grow 3 to 5 feet a year and as tall as 30 to 40 feet and provide full privacy year-round. After Mr. Pollock had sent the opposition letter, I had met with him outside of his home and just to talk things out. And the following day, he had sent me this email stating that he's not against development, and he thought that 3 houses was too many for this property. And if I would change my plans to 2 homes, that he would retract his opposition and in turn support my project. We have changed our plans, which has drastically changed the economics, but have not received any support, but instead more opposition. He also had sent a second email after the Planning Commission staff report showing his appreciation that I changed my plans to 2 homes, and that he's happy that also agreeing that we're planting cryptomerias along the property line. Mr. Pollock also says that I'm inexperienced. I have no regard for pulling permits or doing things by code. I'm a 3rd-generation barber and local business owner. I may not have experience of going through the steps of zoning property or even building, but I don't think my experience level or my current occupation should stop me from chasing my dreams. I've seen this property for 6 years and almost every morning told myself that we will own this property one day and we will build our dream home on it. My wife and I want to show our 4 children that if you set your mind to something, you can achieve it. Mr. Pollock has mentioned my personal backyard and his opposition, which has nothing to do with this project, but I am currently working with the city to get it straightened out. I've made mistakes, and I don't think that should prevent me from getting the zoning approved. His whole case is on my personal property and not on the property we're here discussing. I feel that he has a personal quarrel against me and not the development of this property. I plan on working closely with my neighbor and developer, John, here, and I hope to learn how to develop a property and how to build, and I do ask this council to take my case in great consideration. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Dorito?
I hope I don't.
Zavalunov.
Ordinario. Wow. Thank you for presenting this evening, and I want to also thank you for addressing the concerns I raised with Mr. Woodman as far as what your neighbor expressed in an email to the council yesterday. I'm satisfied with the explanation by Mr. Woodman as far as you proactively responding to those concerns. The only thing I would ask you is I'm assuming you're agreeing to the conditions in if this is approved tonight, the list of conditions?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you saw those?
About...
For conditions for approving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The only thing would you be opposed if we added one additional condition as far as, making sure that the current, which you're already working on with community development here, the permit issues on your current property at 570 Waterview Trail in Alpharetta, that be part of addressing those and resolving those permit issues with the city as part of the condition to get this approval?
Yeah, I am working with them.
And I was going to ask our attorney if that's even
Right. So the conditions for this zoning need to be limited to this property.
to the zoning. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, I appreciate your good faith in trying to work those out, so
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
I also wanted to address the trees that were cut on the property, the 10355. I do have, I had sent the home inspection report to the city staff, Mr. Goodman. Mr. Woodman, the home inspection report does have pictures of the trees that I did remove, and the home inspector has put that it should be removed because they were dead. So I did send that to staff back in September 7th, after the September 7th meeting.
Mr. Woodman, are you familiar with that?
Yes, the applicant did provide some information. I don't recall that there was enough information in the inspection report when he bought the property, but the city arborist was satisfied based on, he looked at an aerial, he went out to the property, and he was satisfied with the information that the applicant had provided, that the trees were not healthy, and that's why they were removed ultimately. But yes, he did provide some information from the initial inspection of the home.
Did you see pictures?
I do believe that there were some pictures. It's been a while since I've looked at that information. This application has been deferred a couple times, but yes, it was submitted with the initial request to us.
Okay, thank you.
I could send it again as well. It was very detailed, and he took pictures of the whole property and all the
I
concerns.
appreciate that. I just wanted to verify the statement you made with staff. I take Mr. Woodman's statement as being supportive of your having submitted them. I just wanted to clarify since you made that claim and I didn't have any evidence in front of me. Any other questions for the applicant? I'm just curious because, I mean, staff did a good job of documenting all of this, but I'm trying to understand how this is all going to work. So one of these two new homes you intend to live in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Which one is that?
The one to the left of the property. You guys can see that?
Okay. And so the other one you'll probably sell off, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
What is the remnant of this other parcel in the corner of that triangle? Is that owned by anybody else? Or
Up
do
here?
you? That one and the one down in the,
It's currently, they have sheds on the property, like old sheds with.
who owns that property?
It's all mine. It used to be
Okay.
part of the person who I bought it from. I guess he was a landscaper. He's got a bunch of landscaping like materials and just two.
And the property along Waters Road, down in that corner.
The house right here?
No, I'm talking about the undeveloped property. I'm just curious how that plays out with that parcel that looks like a remnant down there in that far bottom right corner. I don't see an address.
My name is John. I'm a neighbor to the applicant and also an expediter in this process. All this is the same. It's really the same piece of property. This is this broken line you see right here is just the limit of disturbance. So this and this is just one single property.
And so what I'm trying to figure out is when you build that house and sell that, who's going to be responsible for that property? Are you just going to remain the owner of that remnant?
Do you mean this section?
Yes.
This is part of this property. What you see right here, this broken line is just the limit of disturbance. So this and this is one single property.
Okay, so that wasn't clear to me. That's why I was confused. I thought that since that was the edge of the land disturbance, it wasn't. So you're going to have that whole portion you'll be selling off as one lot.
Yes, sir.
That's what I was trying to get to. It wasn't clear to me just based on what I'd read and heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do, Mr. Mayor. The first one is for Mr. Chuck Pollock. If you come forward This is your first time speaking in front of mayor and council. Please address your comments to mayor and council directly and state your first and last name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Pollock. I live at 580 Waterview Trail, which adjoins the property that's subject to the rezoning application. And as I think all of you know, I've submitted some materials in opposition. Let me just initially discuss a couple things the applicant had mentioned.
Just to let you know, we have a limit of 3 minutes. So.
Okay. He did come talk to me after my first opposition, and I did send him an email saying that I think we could probably come to terms. That was the last conversation I've had with him. It's a mischaracterization for him to say, I've agreed to withdraw my opposition if he went from 3 houses to 2. In terms of the trees, the only trees that he's taking out in the setback are trees directly behind my house. He's taking out no trees that are behind his existing house. He's taking out no trees behind anyone else's house, just my house. And in terms of the tree survey, which did not depict any of the trees on my house, which incidentally have diameters ranging from 12 inches to 22 inches, and I believe are specimen trees. They're all hardwoods. No one's ever attempted to survey those. No one's asked me about them. I've not heard from the arborist about them. In fact, I did deal with the arborist, and he's the one that sent me the list of requirements for tree surveys, which more than half of which are not met, including there's no signature. No engineer has stamped that survey. I don't know who prepared it. I don't know who's taking responsibility for it. I do know that it doesn't comply with what's required. Just like his fire pit and his outdoor kitchen that were built at different times, neither of which comply with the code. And in fact, the fire pit is almost on my property line. And I know that the code requires at least a 25-foot setback. Is the city going to require him to remove that as they should? I would agree with Councilman Dorito, where he was sort of heading about resolving these building permit issues before any action is done on this rezoning.
Less than 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. So, yes, I'm here speaking for the trees on my property, the trees directly behind my property. I would ask that the very amateurish way that this came up by the applicant be taken into consideration, and that this be denied. And I understand that your authority is broader than the Planning Commission. So where the Planning Commission didn't have authority, perhaps, in dealing with his existing property, you do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if there's anyone else here that would like to speak on this matter, now's your opportunity. Please come forward. Once again, if you could, state your name and your address for the public record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is John Edgemejo, and I'm the sole owner of the next subdivision that's next to the applicant's property that's currently under development as R12. I would like to start my statement today by quoting Mahatma Gandhi. The world is full enough of our needs, but not enough of our greed. Mr. Pollack right here, his desire to have my neighbor's property street to serve as a screening for his own property should not serve as a determination to deny my client or my neighbor the right to use his own property and to develop it within the state laws, the city of Alpharetta ordinances. That's my take. And I hope and I trust in this council to do the right thing. Thank you, sir.
And sir, if you could state your address for the record one more time.
My address is 10365 Waters Road. It's a Connors Court. I'm currently developing 4 properties on that subdivision. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward?
Good evening, everyone.
Name and address, please.
Ben Milikondo. I'm at Kings Mark Trail, 10610, Alpharetta, 30022. I walk down Waters Road we jog, we walk with my wife. I have a 10-month-old baby. On the side that I walk is where Dunmore is located. Dunmore is in the same side as Waters Cove, at which I believe, he's building 4 homes in that same road right next to where Narek Suvolunov wants to build. And I saw the property that he wants to build, and the sidewalk kind of cuts off. So I'm for this project, so that way we can, he can develop the sidewalks so that we can walk, because it is unsafe to cross the road from where I walk from Dunmore to cross. It is a busy street. If possible, that's what I think is possible for that. But yeah, I mean, right now, as is, there's trees that are kind of go over towards the road. If the sidewalk is open, it'll make it safe for the community members. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? We'll close public comment. Do we have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve Z-23-08/V-23-13 10355 Waters Road, subject to the 9 conditions set forth in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Heights, second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? Councilman Will?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make a quick comment that the application does fit within the future land use, I think it's called here, and the proposed setbacks that it's asking for are also similar to the subdivisions around it. So to me, that kind of makes it a no-brainer. This is a good project. It's just my comment.
Any other discussion? Councilman Dorito?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, everyone, for coming up and speaking at the microphone. I was concerned about the things that I raised with Mr. Woodman. I have full faith in our staff and community development to deal with the permit issues on the applicant's current property. And I would suspect that staff will do what they need to do to address those situations, which, as our legal counsel advised, we cannot make part of this zoning application. But I'm very satisfied that they're going to do the right thing for correcting that situation, whatever the result of that is. You'll work that out with them. I kind of echo Councilor Wills. It's difficult to turn this application down. You did address the tree issues satisfactorily with the arborist and with community development. So staff recommendation is to approve this, and I think this actually would be a good project for the area. I'm very familiar with the property. I go by there quite often, and as the last gentleman that got up and spoke, there is no sidewalk there, and it is a dangerous situation crossing over to the other side. And I've always actually seen that driving by your property as something that hopefully would eventually be addressed. So hopefully as a result of this, if it's approved by council tonight, that sidewalk would be addressed as well as a real improvement for that area. So thank you very much.
Mr. Woodman, I keep going back over this. I just wanted to check. Are the sidewalks 6 foot on the other portions of Waters Road?
Yes, the 6 foot that we're asking for in the condition is a continuance of what is out there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I couldn't remember how wide those were.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other discussion, we have a motion to approve with the conditions as outlined in the motion by Councilman Dorito and Councilman Hypes. And all those in favor of the motion to approve with the conditions, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. It does pass unanimously. Next item up on our public hearing agenda is the V-2, oh no, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. That next item on the printed agenda was deferred. The item has been deferred by the applicant to the November 27th City Council meeting and public hearing. So we won't be taking that item up this evening. We'll move on to item C on the printed agenda, and that is PH-23-16, City of Alpharetta Capital Improvement Element. Ms. Eswine, if you'll go ahead and read the resolution out loud.
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia for the adoption of the capital improvement element and annual report.
Mr. Woodman, now that we have the official reading, if you could, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're asking you to approve a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022 capital improvement element and annual report. The Georgia Planning Act, of course, requires local governments provide an annual update of their capital improvement element. City Council did authorize staff to transmit the CIE, or capital improvement element, to Atlanta Regional Commission and Department of Community Affairs back in August 21st of this year. We did receive approval from DCA and ARC back in early to mid-September, and we are just asking for your approval of that resolution this evening. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Woodman on this item? Thank you. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, now's your chance to come forward and speak on this if you would like to do so. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, ask council approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2022 capital improvement element and annual report.
Have a motion by Councilman Heitz, second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the City of Alpharetta capital improvement element, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So we'll wrap up the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting, move on to new business. First item under new business is PH-23-10, the Earl Wood House Historic Designation. Ms. Eswine, could you please read the ordinance aloud while Mr. Woodman once again takes the floor?
An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia to amend section 2.9 Historic Preservation Incentive Zoning of the Unified Development Code of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia to add 531 South Main Street, Earl Wood House to Appendix B, Historic Resources Inventory Designated Historic Buildings, to repeal conflicting ordinances and for other purposes.
You don't have to wait on her, Michael. Feel free to approach the dais.
No changes since first reading.
Thank you, sir. I assume nobody had any questions about that item. All right. Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards on this?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if you'd like to come forward and speak on this, now is your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the PH 23-10 Earl Wood House Historic Designation.
Have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Heitz, before Councilman Mitchell even got it out of his mouth. Any discussion?
It's a great day in Alpharetta when we approve a historic designation, so.
All those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Next item is PH-23-13, Gardner House, Historic Designation. Ms. Eswine, Mr. Woodman.
An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia to amend section 2.9 Historic Preservation Incentive Zoning of the Unified Development Code of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia to add 133 Cummings Street, Gardner House to Appendix B, Historic Resources Inventory Designated Historic Buildings, to repeal conflicting ordinances and for other purposes.
Mayor and council, no changes since first reading.
Any questions for Mr. Woodman? Councilman Will.
Mr. Woodman, for those of us who don't know the significance of making it a historic structure, what does that mean? What difference does it make?
So once the property goes from the contributing list to the historic designation list, there are some incentives in this historic preservation ordinance that you can then apply to your property, such as if it's a residential structure, you could use up to 40% of the property for some certain commercial uses. So if you just say maybe you have a beauty salon or something as your kind of side hustle business, you could live in the historic house, but you could use 40% of that for a beauty shop. Or if you're an insurance salesman and you sell insurance, you could use 40% of that for an insurance office.
Why does the historic designation specifically allow you then to run a commercial business? I don't understand.
It's just an incentive. So there wasn't a lot of, so when we developed the historic preservation incentive ordinance, there wasn't a lot of teeth in the ordinance. Really, the only thing that we put in there that wouldn't allow someone to demolish a historic property is we do require an applicant, if they would like to demo a historic property, they have to come before city council. So that was pretty much all the teeth that was in that ordinance. So we needed to put other means of encouraging people to save historic properties. So giving them that extra bit that they could use in order to justify the investment in that property.
So we want them to save the property, and therefore we give them an incentive to do it.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. And just so you'll be aware, and the public may or may not remember, but we had discussions, and many ordinances around the country are punitive to people if they want to do it, or took away potential options and things. And our council at the time decided we'd rather provide incentives to preserve those houses. And so I think it's worked well so far. Mm-hmm. No, well, I'm glad you asked, because sometimes those of us that were around just take it for granted, but it was a conscious decision to try to incentivize good behavior rather than punishing the behavior we really didn't want. Yep. Any other discussion? Any questions?
I do have a
Councilman Mitchell.
Mr. Woodman or Goodman, can you explain, there's been some concern about the amount of trees that have been cut down around the Gardner house. Can you address that? I know that there's a sidewalk going through and there's some visual, but can you further address that?
Sure. So there was a site plan that was approved in conjunction with the rezoning of that property. And there were tree saves shown at that time, and the other trees that were not shown to be saved, of course, could come down. There are a number of things going on that property. So it's got 2 road frontages, and as part of development of that property, they have to install the streetscape along Cummings Street as well as Cricket Lane. So the sidewalk along both of those right-of-ways did impact some trees. There's also a tree that's right there at the intersection of Cricket and Cumming that was obstructing site visibility in a vehicle. I actually encouraged the applicant to keep that tree until the city arborist and transportation engineer alerted me to the fact that it was blocking that sight line. So I do understand some of the concern about the tree removals on the property, but they were in conjunction with development of that site, the installation of the streetscape, as well as that site issue.
And it's my understanding that the tree planting will be greater than what was lost.
Yeah, so there are requirements to install the landscape strip along both of those right-of-ways. There are going to be some replanting within the stream buffers on that property. So the southern portion of that property is all stream buffer. And so as part of impacting those buffers, the northern part of that buffer was reduced. The southern part was not. But as part of the mitigation of the impacts to that stream buffer, there's also going to be some replanting on the south side of that property as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the council to please approve PH 23-13, the Gardner House Historic Designation.
I have a motion by Councilman Mitchell, a second by Councilman Heips. Any discussion?
Yes, this one was a hard-fought battle, and it faced some challenges for a while there. So to see that house restored and in the process of being restored, and also to see that it's our most historic in-town crossroads, because we have 3 historic homes there. It is really awesome to see, and the new development that goes around it is mimicking those homes, and so it's just a great day just to see this.
Any other discussion? I'd just like to expound upon the part they were talking about, the trees that came down, and as we were talking about the other property, it's a delicate balance, because these are private property owners who own homes, and they have a right to do what they have a right to do with their properties. And so we try to incentivize doing what the council and the community believes is in the best interest. And I know nobody likes to see big trees coming down, but it's going to be really expensive to rebuild the Gardner House in the fashion it needs to be done. And those things, people just don't come in and offer to do that unless we can figure out a way as a community to make it economically feasible to do good stuff. And so I understand why there's, pushback on taking down big trees. But the trade-off was, if we don't allow them to do something that's feasible there, that house would rot and it would end up just becoming a mansion eventually that had no historic significance. So that being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up, PH-23-11, Unified Development Code, UDC text amendments. Ms. Eswine?
An ordinance by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend Article 2, Article 3, and Appendix A, Alpharetta Downtown Code of the Unified Development Code of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, to amend regulations pertaining to electric vehicle charging stations, to amend regulations pertaining to Alpharetta Downtown Design Guidelines, to amend and add regulations pertaining to signs, to amend and add regulations pertaining to tree conservation, to amend and add regulations pertaining to multi-use trails, to repeal conflicting ordinances, and for other purposes.
Director Cook, have there been any changes since the first reading?
There is.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, there is one change proposed. It's for the section multi-use trails. Although there's 5 different sections within this resolution, we are proposing one change to the 3.5.7 multi-use trail by adding number 5, signage exclusive of city-required wayfinding or recreational signs shall maintain a 10-foot setback from multi-use trails. We already require a 10-foot setback from roadways, right-of-way, but the Alpha Loop Trail is not technically considered right-of-way. So we just propose that you consider that as the change.
Any questions for Director Cook? Councilman Will?
Director Cook, I just have one interesting question here. And I don't really know the answer. I'm actually trying to look it up. But we are eliminating charging stations that have face illuminated channel letter signs.
No, we are eliminating the face illuminated channel letters throughout the city. We don't permit those within the downtown, so this would not allow them throughout the city.
Does that mean that like a Tesla charger would be precluded?
So the sign section is part of the sign ordinance. There's a separate EV charging station section, but the EV charging station section, that's for private development. Are you seeing something that's tying the signage to the EV?
I'm confused. So, like, for instance, this is what a Tesla charger looks like, and it's got illuminated letters on it. And according to this, it says we're prohibiting face-illuminated letters and signs
I see.
for charging stations.
So with charging stations, those are built on private development. So the signage, if they showed signage on the EV charging stations, it would be counted toward their allowed signage on their property. So they could have Tesla, but that would be counted towards their square footage. Now, if it was internal within a parking deck and it wasn't visible, and we've seen that, there's a couple of different office buildings and corporate tenants that actually have signage on their EV charging stations. If it can't be seen by the right-of-way, within the right-of-way, we allow it.
So for instance, most of these charging stations I see for Tesla, and I own a Tesla, so I've used them many times, are in parking lots. If they put those in there, then that's going to go against whatever the businesses within that complex are allowed from a signage perspective.
That's correct. And so this change, we're going to come back with an overall EV ordinance for the city, because we need to look at what are we allowing within parks. You know, we're going to have some private parcels that we're going to need to look at what type of EV charging stations, how many. So we're going to have a larger ordinance. This was in order to not penalize large development if they want to put in a more expensive charging station that's a faster charge. Because right now, if you do that, you had to build so many per parking spaces. So what we did is we said, if you're going to build a faster charging station, you don't have to build as many. So that was the purpose, only to help private development, so that it would encourage them to put the higher charging stations. Now, we will come back with an EV plan for the city that will be a larger plan. And that's something where we'll address, can they emit sound? Can it play music? I mean, we will look at a larger plan for the city.
It strikes me that as a country, we appear to be moving towards electric-only vehicles in the next 15 years, and yet we're passing ordinances to say that we don't allow chargers.
Yeah, that's not what we're doing. We're actually encouraging them to put the faster charging stations. And then the prohibiting the face illuminated channel letter signs, that's for buildings versus a charging station. That was not the intent. These two aren't really tied together.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Director Cook? Councilman Hypes. Well, if you have a clarification, I'd prefer you go ahead and ask for the clarification.
When this comes up, if we did add the additional language on signage on multi-use trails, that's not currently part of the ordinance as referenced, correct?
That is not currently part of it. Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking.
We can both answer, that's fine. No, as far as my understanding is it's not in the draft yet. Okay. That's something new. So if you make a motion and you want to include it, I would specify that you say as presented and with the addition as provided.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro, any public comment cards on this item?
We do not have any, Mr. Mayor.
However, you still got a chance to come forward and speak. Now's your opportunity. You've been very patient.
My name is Carla Shaw. I live at 2610 Trawick Chase, and I may have questions or clarifications as well as statements. One of the things I was drawn to and I wanted to question was the section that says amendment to the tree conservation landscape and buffer requirements to remove pine trees as a specimen of quality and to allow homeowners associations to review certain requests for tree removal within the front yard. The request for the homeowners association to review the tree removals in the front yard, is that instead of the city arborist or in addition? Is that a replacement? Okay, so my concern is that if that is a replacement, that it's a weakening of the code that protects against tree removals, and it's going to lead to more widespread tree removal. I would say that that's a weakening, and I would certainly be against anything that would weaken the tree preservation laws and codes that we have in Alpharetta. So that is one concern and question. And the other concern in question is the part where it talks about removing pine trees as a specimen of tree quality tree. Again, my concern is that that is also a degradation or a backtracking of the city's tree preservation code and ordinances, and I would certainly be against that. Pine trees are very ubiquitous, they're everywhere here in Georgia, and if there is any backtracking or if there is any stepping back from the code or weakening of the code as it relates to pine trees, that certainly will result in much more widespread tree removal and degradation. So those are my two concerns, and I would certainly speak in favor of preserving and even strengthening the tree preservation requirements that we have.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Cook, would you like to address those issues?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The 30-inch diameter requirement for pine trees, that was left in the proposed changes. So we removed that, so that's not part of what you're considering. It's always been required that a 30-inch pine tree was considered specimen, and we had proposed to take that out, but at the last meeting, we removed that. So there's no changes on the pine trees. They will remain, the 30-inch will remain as a specimen tree. We did change the trees of quality definition. So the definition states, tree of quality is defined as a tree that merits special consideration due to historical significance, ideal shape and structure or uniqueness of the species as determined by the director. And we added a sentence that says pine, yellow poplar, sweet gum, Bradford pear, Leland cypress, invasive species, or other species as determined by the director shall not be considered a tree of quality, because we've seen too many trees where developers are getting credit for what's considered trees of quality, and then a homeowner will buy that property and then they'll want to remove the pine trees because they think that those are going to be too dangerous. So we do not want to give private development credit for some of these trees that we're seeing immediately removed after. So to us, we believe that this strengthens the ordinance. But glad to answer any questions you may have.
Councilman Height?
Yeah, I'm seeking clarification because I had a good understanding from the first reading. That last tree of quality provision, that was included in the first reading, the one that...
Yeah, so the tree of quality is still in there. The only thing that was removed is we were previously asking council to remove that a pine tree was considered.
And that was removed from in the first
Yes.
reading. So truly, there's no changes other than this signage along the multi-trail for the entirety of the ordinance.
Correct, from the first reading.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dorito?
Ms. Cook, just could you address the concern expressed regarding the recommendation for the tree preservation ordinance to allow qualified issuing HOA to consider tree removal permits for certain tree? Because I kind of see the point there. It's almost, we're going to create an environment where most people will do the right thing, but it's those that don't do the right thing usually do it in a very big way. And so how do we protect that from happening?
So there is a class that the HOA would have to attend. They would also have to give all of the contacts. They would also have to give copies of any tree permits that they've issued each month so that we can keep track with that. And there's also a method where we can take away their rights to issue those permits if we have found that they're in violation. And with the allowance, we are only permitting that they can give tree removal permits for the front yard. The front yard is very different from the side yard as well as the rear. The side yard, of course, really going to impact if there's something removed between neighbors, as well as the rear. There's usually zoning buffers or streams, so we didn't want to have that allowance. It's only on the front.
And how would, I guess, how would this apply to a single family or a residential unit outside of an HOA?
It doesn't. You would have to be,
So
you'd have to be an HOA with an on-call landscape architect or arborist. So if you do not have, I'm sorry.
What's the staff's position, why we are recommending this? Like what, in an HOA environment?
Because we believe that we've seen so many different developments as we've aged over time that are very different, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. So we believe that an HOA should have that ability to look at their lots. For instance, if it's a townhome community, some of these trees may be touching the front of that townhome. So they should have a landscape architect develop what is going to be the best for their community. And maybe it's dogwoods, maybe it's smaller trees, and it's going to fit a 2,500 square foot lot versus something that may be more appropriate for a 15,000 square foot lot. So this gives us the ability, we'll have to approve the replacement lists, and we'll work with each qualified HOA to make sure that they come up with something that's really going to be good for the
So the city
neighborhood.
would still be involved with these?
Absolutely.
permits, right? As far as, it's just not going to be, they make the decisions and the city's not made aware of it, or that a permit was issued by the HOA, you know, going through the class and being certified to do that, all that stuff that this requires. So there'll still be city oversight in these permits, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns, Director Cook? Thank you, ma'am. So we've had public comment. If no one has any other questions, I'll call for a motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve agenda item PH-23-11, Unified Development Code text amendments for signs, multi-use trails, parking, downtown design, and tree preservation per the ordinance title as read by City Attorney Eswine, with the following addition to Exhibit F 3.5.7 multi-use trails, new number 5 reading signage, comma, exclusive of city required wayfinding or recreational signs, comma, shall maintain a 10-foot setback from multi-use trails.
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes. Do we have a second?
Second?
I have a motion by Councilman Hypes and a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve PH-23-11 as outlined in the motion by Councilman Hypes, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. Next item up is the contract approval, acquisition of right-of-way, Old Milton Parkway. Ms. Eswine, if you could read the resolution, we'll have Director Sisevich come forward.
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, authorizing the mayor and city council to execute a contract for the acquisition of right-of-way for State Route 120 from North Point Parkway to Kimball Bridge Road, PI 0017187.
Thank you, ma'am. Director Sisevich.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a standard operating procedure with a federally funded project through GDOT in which we have to get approval from you all to move forward with the right-of-way acquisition. It is the next phase of our project. We have finalized our design plans. Our concept plan has been approved. So now we're going to go start the acquisition of right-of-way. So we are required to approve or to acquire all the right-of-way and purchase all the right-of-way. That matches up to about $2 million, and GDOT will fund the construction, which is approximately at $25 million.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for Director Sisevich? Ms. Shapiro, do we have any public comment cards?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
However, if anyone would like to come forward, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I move to approve the contract for acquisition of right-of-way associated with the Old Milton Parkway widening project, adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor and city council to execute a contract for acquisition of right-of-way for State Route 120 from North Point Parkway to Kimball Bridge Road, and authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Was that Councilman Will with the second, I believe? So we have a motion by Councilman Dorito, a second by Councilman Will for the contract approval acquisition of right-of-way for Old Milton Parkway as outlined in the motion. All those, any discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes. Otherwise, vote accordingly. Councilman Mitchell's not with us. But it does pass unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Pete. Good to see that one starting to move forward. Next item is the resolution for the submission of Community Development Block Grant Funding Application, ADA Accessibility Improvements to the Adult Activity Center Parking Lot. Ms. Eswine, if you could read the resolution.
A resolution by the Mayor and Council of the City of Alpharetta, Georgia, authorizing the submission of an application to Fulton County for Community Development Block Grant Funding, authorizing the allocation of matching funds and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr.
Director
Mayor.
Rogers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again, Council. We're asking tonight for the consideration of approval for the resolution to submit a community development block grant grant to redo the parking lot at the Adult Activity Center in North Park and create a better ADA accessibility. The overall grant that we were going to request is $257,359. That's the cost of the project. The CDBG would fund $231,359 of that, requiring us to match $26,000, and we would propose that from unallocated capital should we get the grant. The grant is going to redesign and add ADA accessible parking spaces at the adult center. It would be, we would mill up most of the parking lot, put back curb and gutter, additional sidewalks, and install new curbs and gutters throughout it. It's an older parking lot, and then right now it is in pretty bad shape, and so we're looking to restore that parking lot so that our seniors that are on their way to a fun activity in the adult center would have a good place to park and a safe way to get there. I do have to tell you that the deadline for the grant was actually October the 9th, so we have actually submitted the grant, and if it's approved tonight, we will allow that go. If it's not, we can formally remove that from the request. We spoke with them before doing that, so not any pressure to approve it, but I did want you to let you know that to meet the deadline, we did have to put the grant in, the application in. Be glad to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions from council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Shapiro?
No comment cards, sir.
But if you want to come forward and speak on the block grant, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to ask council to approve or adopt as presented resolution of mayor and city council authorizing the submission of an application to Fulton County for community development block grant funding and authorizing the allocation of up to $26,000 of matching funds and for other purposes.
Have a motion by Councilman Hypes. Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Will. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So the next item is the purchase and contract approval for the grant software Carasoft agreement. Mr. Lagerfeld.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is a two-part item tonight. If we go back to some of the priorities we talked about during your council retreat, one was to get us more back in the grants game. We do it really at a department level, but it's been a while since we've had any specific focus on grants. This request tonight comes after that discussion, working through the budget process where funds were allocated for both of the requests. For the single request, two parts that's coming forward tonight. This would in fact put us back in the grant business with a grant management tool that not only searches for grants, finds grants, tracks grants, reports on grants, all of the things that are important to do as we receive money and make sure that we report correctly, as well as 1 year's worth of consulting services to basically get us off the ground. Working with Witt O'Brien's as a consulting firm, they've worked with over 150 other state and local governments. They have a team of tremendous size that they could really work with us and identify Alpharetta's priorities, start us on a path towards making application for grants. We've had the conversation with them that it may be one of these things where they're just a tool that we use for a period of time, as we then identify whether or not it's important for us to maybe or maybe not bring somebody back on staff to manage grants on a full-time basis. I don't quickly jump to bringing on additional full-time equivalent employees as a first option, simply because I've seen over many, many years that once you make that decision, it's awfully hard to undo it. I think in this particular circumstance, we get a lot further, a lot quicker, and establish a baseline and then figure out if we want to continue with the experience that we have or if we want to potentially place somebody back into that type of role that Ms. Day was in years ago here in Alpharetta. The procurement method of this is slightly different than what you all have seen before. This is a co-op purchase, recommended co-op purchase, meaning that it was competitively solicited, just not by us. In this particular circumstance, it was competitively solicited by the state of Utah and made available to local governments and state governments for their use. The city attorney's office has been through it from a legal perspective as it relates to purchasing, as has our finance department. And while non-traditional to what we've seen historically, it is a widely used method of being able to bring these types of services on board rather quickly, relying upon somebody else's competitive process. With that, the total purchase price, $106,735.27. Of that, the grant management tool is roughly $40,920. There's a $26,114 one-time implementation, with a balance being grant management and consulting at $39,700. Again, all of those funds are budgeted in the adopted budget that you all have approved that we are operating under now. And I'm happy to answer any questions once we get going. If we get going, if you all approve this, you'll see monthly reports from our grants consultants. You all will be able to track along as well and find out. My anticipation is that the investment that we make will be significantly outpaced with what we're able to bring to the organization. And so we'll report that to you on a monthly basis through Witt O'Brien's if we move forward with this agreement tonight. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Councilman Height?
I see in the contract it has hourly fees. Is it capped at the amount that you're requesting here? What happens if the hours are more than anticipated? That was question number one.
And we'll have to manage that because, yes, I can't go beyond what the authority of the council would give. So, but we worked with that consulting firm to come up with what a good number was based upon our scenario, based upon our circumstances for a 1 year. So that wasn't just a wild guess number. That was a number that we worked with them on, and we will have to stay within that number.
Question number two, and I apologize for not getting with you on this before the meeting, so just winging it here.
That's all good.
I apologize. How do we define success? You've done your due diligence. You picked this platform over others. You know where our grant money is level, right now. What do you do when you report back to us after a year of doing this? What do you see as success?
Well, obviously, I'm a big believer as our first level of success with grants is that grants should pay for grants. And, it is a bit of an ambiguous bar because there's really, there's all sorts of grant money out there, and we have to match our circumstances and our needs to those available dollars and then be successful in being awarded and then even further successful in being implemented. So as far as saying, do I think, Councilmember, we're going to have a certain dollar figure in our first year that is a result of grants? There's probably some industry standards we could go to. I don't know that there's necessarily an Alpharetta standard, but I would start, at least initially, that that there will be more grant dollars received in the city of Alpharetta as a result of this work than we end up investing in this work. And
would one of the biggest variables be we get this great tool, but we still have to have somebody who on the staff owns it, who's responsible for working it and making it work? And if so, who's the point person?
Yeah, so I've gotten significant buy-in from our leadership team on being willing to work with grants consulting. I think there's a very large level of energy that wants to move forward amongst our existing team. I can't tell you that we have one person that is the go-to. The one person that's been the go-to for the purposes of getting us this far has been our city clerk. But I think you've got a very ambitious and aggressive team that, with the right assistance in the consulting firm, we won't need one specific person. We can rely upon our leadership team to be that person.
Well, I wish it much success.
Any other questions, Mr. Lagerberg? Council? Oh, okay, sorry. Councilman Binder.
Mr. Lagerberg, can you repeat that again? So who would be the person in charge of the grants?
So if you approve this, it's really a two-part thing. One is a grants management tool. The second is grant management consulting through a consulting firm called Witt O'Brien's. We won't have a on-staff government-paid employee as a grants manager. That role would be fulfilled by the consulting firm, and the liaison to the consulting firm based upon the different disciplines would be our leadership team. So not one person specifically, but our group working with Witt O'Brien's.
Is the consulting firm local? Where are they located?
They're a national company, and candidly, I've had all my meetings with them on Zoom, so, and it's been pretty effective. I'd have to pull the contract to see exactly where they're located, but I know they have a presence around the United States, so it's not just a single location.
We talk about the packets. We get them in on Wednesday mid through, and I missed this one. Going back to my old systems day, the phrase I used is people, ideas, and systems. And it's in that order and it's in that priority. You can put the best system out there, but if you don't know who's running it and who's the stakeholder, that's a good way to start off behind the gate. So that makes me a little bit nervous on there. Is there a way you can expound on who would be the point person?
Yeah, so right now, our point person that's being our funnel, not necessarily the technical funnel or the subject matter expert, but the procedural point of contact has been our city clerk. She's worked with both of these companies to get us to this point, and has probably been more attached to it than even I have. I was just the one that was selected to present tonight. Maybe in response to your caution, I could suggest that, and as I've said, this really is a goal of getting us up to speed quickly and completely, but not necessarily permanently that this is the right solution. Rather than going to the market and advertising for a grants management professional, making some interviews and making a hiring decision, all of that would at least eat up what is being proposed tonight in the form of dollars available by the time you get to salary and benefits, and we still need a grants management tool even if we get back into the grants business ourselves. So.
And then with that, and that kind of goes back to my priority, and I got to think, I didn't come up with that phrase. It was an Air Force Captain, John Boyd, and we bring somebody in and say, well, we use a different system, or it's, you bring in you hire the expert, and the expert says this is what the experts are using for a system. So can easily do a 180 on that and switch systems, or with the capital already put in?
No, and I don't know that the recommendation would be to switch systems. The recommendation that's being made tonight is the recommendation I would make to you all, whether we chose to use Witt O'Brien's as a consulting firm to launch us, or whether or not I was sitting here asking you for approval to hire a person. So very comfortable with this grants management tool, seen it in action, and confident in making the recommendation to you all that whether it was in the format of hiring our own person or going this direction, the recommendation would be the same.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro?
We have no public comment cards, sir.
However, if you want to speak on this item, now's your chance. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the CARA Soft Cooperative Agreement for Grant Management Software, e-Civis, and Grant Management Consulting Services from Witt O'Brien in the amount of $106,735.27. Authorize the mayor to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Will, a second by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion?
I think it's great that we have this program. I've never heard of this, so Lauren, thanks for researching this and bringing it to us, and thanks for putting it on the agenda tonight. I always think it's great when we can have programs that work to our advantage and save us tax dollars by getting more grants, and if we can put a widow to work to do it, that's even better. Thank you.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve as outlined by Councilman Will, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass 5-1. Next item up is a resolution for the dissolution of the Tax Allocation District Number 2, North Point Activity Center. Ms. Eswine, you have this.
A resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, dissolving Tax Allocation District Number 2, Alpharetta North Point Activity Center. So mayor and council, this is exactly what I just said. It is a resolution under Georgia law dissolving the North Point Tax Allocation District. All that is required is that the redevelopment costs have all been paid back. That was, I believe, just over $100,000. We've confirmed with finance that that money has been paid back, and so what is required to actually dissolve this, since the priorities have changed, is to adopt this resolution. So,
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Councilman Binder.
This may be a Tom question. How long does a TAD need to be established in order for us to use it for as a bonding mechanism? And also, what kind of bonding mechanism? How much bonding capacity do we have if it's just local only, not including state or school?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think the question is how long? I think the second part of your question is probably more importantly that we're the only ones on the hook now, so to speak. There's been no agreement under that TAD when it was put in place in 2019. We did not obtain an agreement with the county or school board. So it's just our taxes being separately pulled away from the general fund on the increment value and set aside technically into another fund for the purposes of spending specifically on the redevelopment plan for inside that TAD area, which was the North Point Parkway infrastructure improvements to the road and stuff. So the answer to the question is there's really no value in trying to do a bond, in my opinion, under that approach, using our own money when we have other tools to provide bonding capacity on our own tax dollars anyways. So if the others were involved, then we would determine the bonding capacity, but it would take a few years to get that record in place.
It takes a few years. So just a number, what would be our bonding capacity with local only? Just nothing less than...
I think I recall when the study was done, it was about a 60 million to 90 million, I think, if everybody was involved. And we would be 1/6 of that, 1/7 of that, in that range of that number. So that would be the capacity. And I think it was determined, if you really were bonding this, you couldn't do it in year one. You'd have to have a track record that what is it contributing? Because again, the values can go down, but you would have a few years. In this case, it's only $100,000. So that would today only bond. If we only could do it on today's $100,000 that we're collecting, 15 million. I'm sorry, 1.5 million.
Okay.
On our own 100,000. Does that answer?
Any other questions from council? Thanks, sir. Ms. Shapiro,
We have no comment cards, sir.
now's your last chance to speak on this item. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Do I have a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Alpharetta, Georgia, dissolving tax allocation district number 2, Alpharetta North Point Activity Center.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Will, a second by Councilman Dorito. Any discussion? It was a great idea. It was really bad timing right before COVID. So we'll dissolve it, and maybe in the future we'll keep it in our toolbox for future projects if needed. That being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve the resolution as outlined by Councilman Will, please vote yes, otherwise vote accordingly. And it does pass unanimously. So that'll wrap up new business for this evening. We still have a portion of public comment if anyone would like to speak. Do we have any public comment cards?
No, sir.
Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Any reports this evening?
I have one, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Mr. Lagerblum?
Thank you. Council, what I want to do tonight is just let you know that since our council retreat, you came up with your high priorities and priorities. We're now just into the first quarter of the fiscal year. So what I'm going to do tonight, hopefully, and you're willing to take it, is send with you an update as to where we are with respect to all of those 10 priorities and updates that we have, first quarter updates for you. This will automate in the future. You all approved a couple meetings ago the software package that we can convert the data that you may take with you tonight on paper and make it very visual, very easy to understand so that you can see whether we're improving, not improving, or just staying the same. But for tonight, if I hand you a big packet of paper, that's the first quarter's priority updates just until we have the ability to automate it. So I'll hand those out when we're done with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I just can't let it pass that we had a lot going on in the city of Alpharetta over the weekend. Congratulate Director Rogers and his team for the Wire and Wood Festival and everything else that was going on in the community. So thank you very much. If there's no other reports, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Doritos, second by Councilman Mitchell to adjourn. All those in favor, please vote yes. And it does pass unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. See you next time.
Mayor and council, I do have several documents that need your signature this evening.